What is up, guys? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more r/am the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, but if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe and maybe that notification bell too, and don't forget to select that notification bell to always if you are interested, of course. And just a huge thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here and listen to a story or two. It does mean the world to me. And with that being said, let's just crack straight on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Hometown 11. Am I the arsehole for lashing out after my husband ruined the food I prepared for our guests? Me, female 26, and my husband, male 33 Mike, have been married for a year now. He doesn't cook, he's bad at it. His cooking is the worst despite learning from books, YouTube videos and me teaching him. It just never works. Every time he steps foot into the kitchen, it turns into a mess. I don't know how. He doesn't know how. Maybe because he's constantly busy with work, police officer, and is used to fast food. But he's got good at other things, so we agreed that I handle the cooking. He handles chores. Everything was going well. However, recently he's been getting involved in my cooking. Basically making comments about what ingredients I should and should not add, and I try to take it under consideration, but only if he's being reasonable. Lately he's been waiting for when I prepare dinner or lunch, then he sneaks in or adds extra salt, pepper, spices and other ingredients that completely ruin the meal. First, it was a mystery to me, and it had me questioning myself, why I added too much salt or spices. He admitted he was the one adding extra ingredients and messing up my cooking. The meals are no longer eatable. I've told him to not try and get involved in something he doesn't have experience with. I've basically been eating out for a week now because of him. Last night we had a family visiting. I took the entire day preparing meals. He helped out by going to the grocery stores. I noticed he bought stuff from the grocery store that I wasn't allowed to see. I figured probably some snacks. As we were about to eat dinner, my mum and dad suddenly looked grossed out and they said they couldn't eat because the food had so much salt in it. I was confused. I asked them to try another dish which was too spicy for them to eat. My dad had an upset stomach and he almost threw up. He has high blood pressure and salt wasn't good for him. Mike kept acting confused. My mum and dad couldn't eat anything I made. I knew Mike had something to do with it. My parents left and I felt ashamed. I asked Mike, then I blew up after he admitted he went behind my back to add ingredients that he thought were going to make my food better. I lashed out at him, told him he ruined my work after spending hours and made my parents feel uncomfortable, adding too much salt knowing my dad has high blood pressure. He argued that he was just trying to help and thought the food would be better, so I shouldn't yell at him. And my parents didn't say anything, so it wasn't that bad. I told him he shouldn't have done this, but he refused to acknowledge he did anything wrong. Then went out to meet his friends for dinner. Now I can imagine a lot of people saying, oh, this is controlling behavior, but to me it sounds like sabotage and just purposely trying to ruin your food for some reason. That bit I don't know, but I was just getting that just all the way through that. I could just picture him sneaking in the kitchen and just dumping a load of salt in there and then running back out. It doesn't sound like he was trying to make the food better at all, and the fact that he went out straight after to go out with his friends for a meal, what an asshat. And yes, I do understand that it probably is controlling behavior too, but it just sounds like that he was purposely trying to ruin the meal for some reason. But absolutely not the arsehole in this situation. But Oil See You Later says, not the arsehole, he's repeatedly and dependably ruining every meal he touches. If he wants more salt, he can add it to his portion at the table. There's no universe in which he is being helpful, and how he thinks he is a mystery. Not to be that person, but can he taste and smell okay lately? ETA, oh my god folks, we did it. It's gaslighting. It's real, honest to god gaslighting. And Brian Blaz says, not the arsehole, Mike either has a medical condition or he's just controlling. And Jaybird Blue says, I'm gonna guess that he's a control freak and he feels threatened or emasculated by the fact he has tried to cook and failed, so now he sabotages your cooking by adding his influence. Not the arsehole. And Lisa says, not the arsehole, but like other commenters have mentioned, you should probably test his senses. Try opening a container of epoxy around him and you'll be able to test it pretty easily. Now if it isn't his sense or taste, then tell him he'll eat every bite of every meal he ruins until he stops. Your last comment about him going out for dinner with his friends worries me though. Are you sure he didn't sabotage dinner on purpose so your parents would go home early and he could go out? And then Superfly Secret says, he definitely wasn't trying to help. He purposely over-seasoning and sabotaging food that you've prepared. If he wants more salt, he can add it to his own. No, he instead waited till you weren't looking and purposely added tons of extra seasonings and spiced your food without consent. And he's doing this after being asked not to repeatedly. Why? No, he wasn't trying to help. He would have asked permission or talked to you while you were preparing the food, with you present if he was trying to help. This is very odd, narcissistic, sabotaging, borderline gaslighting tactic. I don't know what's going on in your marriage, but something is up. I want to go to bed with him and I'll demand a true explanation of his malicious actions, and maybe even pack a bag. I literally wouldn't feel safe in a house with a man putting stuff in food like that. It's basically a lesser form of poisoning if he put so much that the food was no longer edible. What the actual fuck? Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Do you think he's being controlling, or do you think there's a lot more going on? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And our next story comes from Trashmouth Tozier. Am I the arsehole for telling my stepdaughter that she does not have to hug this disabled boy in her class? Quick background, I am neurotypical, so please correct me if anything I say is offensive or incorrect. I referred to her as my stepdaughter in the title and not my daughter to highlight that I am a relatively new parent, and I'm still not sure a lot of how I handle things. My stepdaughter is 6 and I've been in her life since she was 3. Last year, pre-COVID, my SD was involved in a kids theatre group for fun. We had her pick one weekly activity to join, expecting a sport. She's very into football lol, but she surprised us. We used to go 1 to 2 times a week. There is this boy in her class who I will call John. John is neurodivergent, though I'm not sure exactly what his disabilities are. He has a lot of aggression and is easily overstimulated. His mum expressed that she was trying to get him more comfortable around other kids so she could feel okay starting him in kindergarten. John would spit, slap and pull hair. These actions were always either immediately disciplined or stopped before they could even happen by his mum, who seemed to be vigilant and a caring parent. On Valentine's Day, she had John bring in cards for everyone in the group. She had him go around and hand cards personally and either give a fist bump, high five or a hug. With most of the girls, he'd hug them and even give them a small cheek kiss. I could see my daughter starting to panic. She hates being touched. She has some sensory issues herself and barely lets even me or her father kiss her goodnight or hug her hello. I told her not to worry, and if she didn't want to hug, she could say so. Her eyes got wide and teary and she asked if I could tell him for her. I said, why don't you just try first? If you can't, I'll always help you. When he came up to us with a card, my daughter took it and said the gentlest, squeakiest little no I've ever heard when he went to hug her. He either didn't hear her or didn't realise what she wanted, so I placed my hand on her shoulder and pulled her back towards me saying, thank you so much John, SD does not want a hug. His mother looked like she'd been slapped, her face went red, and then she was the one tearing up. She rushed John away and shot a, thanks, that's great, that's just really great, behind her as she went with him to the other side of the room. The other parents, mostly mums, totally took her side, and she did not chat with me much for the few weeks we still met for theatre after the incident. I was pretty much a pariah. I was very much viewed as the grown-ass woman who just bullied a disabled child. My daughter was very apologetic, which broke my heart. I was helping her in the car and she said, I'll just hug him next time, okay? I don't want her to ever think she has to adjust her boundaries for anyone, but I have so much sympathy for that young mum who was just trying to help her son and can't help but feel like I threw a wrench in it. Am I the arsehole? Nah, this is going to be a not the arsehole from me, and this is just all about consent and not wanting to be touched, and that's absolutely fine. You don't have to be touched by anyone in life. And this was a perfect teaching opportunity for that mum to teach their child, some people don't like being touched. Some people don't want to be touched at all. And that's absolutely fine. And they could have used that as a lesson, but they didn't. They went down the arsehole route and tried to make OP look like the bad guy in the situation, which they are totally not, for respecting their daughter's wishes. But Valerian Spiel says not the arsehole, and I will likely get downvoted for this, but while I sympathise with John and his mother, I think this is an extremely poor precedent to set. He should not be taught to expect that sort of physical contact from his female classmates, as they have every right to their own bodily autonomy and shouldn't feel pressured to say yes, especially at only 6 years old. And Sev's mama says, not the arsehole. Frankly, I'm shocked and ashamed of some of the comments here saying, not the arsehole, but she should have given a fist bump or high five instead. Or, not the arsehole, you should have warned the mother ahead of time. Fuck that noise. Your SD does not owe anyone any physical contact of any kind for any reason, no matter what. And Jojo Cruz says, please report this to the teacher, principal or school counsellor. No child should be bullied for not providing physical affection. Your SD is not obligated to do anything for anyone, hug or otherwise. No means no. I empathise with the child's mother, but she's teaching him that he is entitled to girls' affections. Not the arsehole, and you sound like a good parent. And Saluki Queen says, not the arsehole, you just taught your daughter a great lesson in consent. She didn't want to be touched, and so she wasn't. You are doing great. Explain to the other mums about your daughter's boundaries and that it wasn't personal. But if they still give you hell, then fuck them, because you weren't mean to that little boy and you had your daughter's back. Good for you, mama. Stay strong. And I love gifs of Jif says, not the arsehole, the other parents are being shitty. She does not have to hug or touch other people. If someone mentions something, then give them a blank expression and say, she doesn't owe anyone access to her body. We don't force her. Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Do you think differently to other people's opinions on this one? I'm always happy to be educated on this channel, so let me know in the comments below. And our next story is, of course, from another throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for how I reacted when my fiance dropped our son off at my workplace? I, male 27, am a nurse. My fiance and I have a 1-year-old baby boy. Fiance doesn't work. She decided to leave her previous job and stay at home. We've agreed that since I'm the one working, she's the one handling home chores. Our son's care is shared, meaning there are times when I handle his feeding, bathing, cleaning, etc. However, I made it clear that when it's time for work, she should be taking responsibility. So far, everything has been going according to what we agreed upon, but recently she's been complaining about my shift hours changing, which is something I can't control, obviously because of the current unit lacks in nurses, and it's impossible for me to do day-to-day planning because sometimes I'd work 12 hours, sometimes 15. So it's quite unpredictable, but I do my best to spend time at home and give my fiance time for herself. Her cousin's wedding was 2 days ago. That morning, my fiance wanted me to skip work and stay at home with our son, so she'd go to the salon with her sisters. I told her I can't just skip work for the day. I already had a long day shift that started at 7:45 AM till 6 PM. I told her she could either call my mum or just wait for me to come home. She threw a fit, saying her cousin's wedding was important and I was being unsupportive. I left home after that and started my shift at the hospital. At around 1 PM, when I was in the middle of work, it usually gets busier in the afternoon, I got a few missed calls from my fiance. Then she sent a text telling me she was at the hospital's parking lot with our son. I went to meet her there. She wanted me to take our son and watch until she gets back from the salon at 4. I lost it. I told her I can't watch our son when I'm in the middle of my shift, and she kept saying I should just let him stay with me and that it was okay. I absolutely lashed out to her. I called her unreasonable and selfish. She could have let someone watch him, but she said her family was busy. We got into an argument and she left him with me. I had to drive to my mum's house and let her have him till I finished my shift. I got home and I was extremely pissed. My fiance and her mum said I overreacted and I was supposed to help since he's my son too. Mother-in-law said I was in the wrong for caring more about work than my own son, but I already told my fiance I was busy. She wanted me to apologise for yelling and causing a scene, but I refused after this. I want to mention that she's normally fine with my work schedule until recently, and whenever there's an event, we'd both make arrangements and I'd stay with our son while she's gone. This time I told her I was busy and that I won't be allowing her to distract me from work, but she was being stubborn, thinking I'm prioritising work and being unsupportive. Those might be her mother's words, but my fiance takes responsibility here. This misunderstanding, as my fiance calls it, could have ended with a discussion, but her mother is determined to paint me as the bad parent who isn't pulling weight and taking part and responsibility in caring for our son. I'm tired of her and how she keeps judging me while ignoring her daughter's behaviour. Gee whiz, the entitlement on this one. I'm lost for words that she literally took the child to a hospital, and I'm assuming during the pandemic, and just left him there expecting OP to look after him when he's a nurse. I mean, come on, man. And you're considering marrying this woman. I was all the way through this. I was like, nah, I'd be out of there after this. Fuck that shit. Especially mother-in-law as well. The whole family sounds entitled to me, and you're going to be marrying into that. No, thank you. But one Mike Nation says, and quotes, mother-in-law said I was in the wrong for caring more about work than my own son. But getting her daughter getting her hair done is more important than your son. Not the arsehole. And OP replies to this saying, you're right, my mother-in-law is just trying to put the blame on me no matter how hard I try to explain to her that her daughter and I already talked about it and that my work is important to me. I realise that this is my son too, and that is my responsibility as well. But my fiance is acting selfish at this point and her mum refuses to see it. And a walnut with teeth says, oh, that's terrifying, not the arsehole, your fiance and her mother sound like idiots. Mother-in-law said I was in the wrong for caring more about work than my own son. Then says her daughter cared more about a salon appointment than her own son. Do you really want to marry into this? And Mad for Quilting says, not the arsehole, and if I were you, I'd reconsider tying yourself to such a selfish, self-centered woman. Just look at your future mother-in-law for what she'll be like in 20 to 30 years. And DNNMNZ says, your fiance thought it was appropriate to let you watch your 1-year-old son at a hospital during a worldwide pandemic because she wanted to get her hair done. So she basically forced you to abandon your patient load while you went to drop off your child with a more suitable childcare option, jeopardizing your job. And she expects you to apologize. Not the arsehole, but she certainly is. And now I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation, and what would you have done if you was OP? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from Best Man Veto Throwaway. Am I the arsehole for vetoing my fiance's pick for his best man? My 30 female fiance, 29 male, and I got engaged over Christmas and are planning our wedding for next spring. We've been together for about 3 years, but there is one weird thing about our relationship. My ex is my fiance's best friend. My ex and I were together for 4 years, and I met my current fiance through that relationship. We broke up because my ex got a new job offer across the country, and I was not in a place in my life where moving like that was a possibility. So he left, I stayed, and we broke up. I was heartbroken and bitter that he would leave me like that, and I pretty much blocked him, but I eventually got over it. Over the next year or so after the breakup, my current fiance and I would hang out from time to time, and eventually we started dating. When we were making our relationship official, my fiance called my ex to let him know. My ex thought it would be a little weird that the two of us were together and that it would take some time to get used to, but told my fiance that as long as we were both happy, what he thinks about our relationship doesn't matter, and he's happy for us. So now that we are engaged and are planning our wedding, my fiance wants my ex to be his best man. My fiance doesn't have any brothers, and my ex is by far his closest and best friend, but I pretty much told him that he can't be used as the best man. I told him it would be too weird that the two men I have had my most meaningful relationships would be standing up at the altar with me on my wedding day. I told him all my friends and family know about my ex and our relationship, and it would just be too weird for him to be such a big part of our wedding. My fiance is very upset about this and isn't willing to compromise on it. He says my ex has always been supportive of him and our relationship, and he can't imagine anyone else standing by his side on his wedding day. He said the only way he would consider not having him as the best man is if we have no wedding party at all. But I don't want to do that because I have 2 sisters who I really want to be by my side. We've kind of put the argument aside for now, but whenever we try to plan something else about the wedding, my fiance brings it up and we end up fighting about it. He thinks I'm being unreasonable and controlling, and that he would never tell me what to do in a situation like this. He says he isn't forcing me to pick his sisters as bridesmaids, and that I'm being an arsehole for not allowing him to pick the people he wants to be by his side. I just don't know what to do. I can't imagine how awkward my wedding would be if I'm trying to look at my future husband and all I see standing behind him is the man who ditched me for a job. I tried explaining this to my fiance, but he refused to change his mind other than to have no wedding party at all, and to me that is not an option. Am I the arsehole here? And we're going to start off with DSZ saying, you're the arsehole and I'm afraid for you that you don't know it. You would be an arsehole in any event, but especially since your fiance's relationship with your ex predated your relationship with the latter. Get over yourself, your ex is clearly over you. Judge Judd, Am I the Arsehole, says, "You're the arsehole," and quotes, "I pretty much blocked him, but I eventually got over it," and then says, "No, you have not." And Tall Girl For You says, "You're the arsehole. If you can handle them being friends through all this, you can handle him being the best man at the wedding. You should have thought about how there would be awkward times before you started dating your ex's friend. It's not just your wedding, your fiancé deserves to have who he wants by his side." And Spotsy says, "You're the arsehole. It seems weird that all you're going to see is the guy who ditched you and not the guy who led you to the man you love and want to spend the rest of your life with. It seems you aren't over your ex, and your ex and your fiancé were friends before you. You had to have known they were going to be important to each other." And Anon says, "You're the arsehole. Should have seen this one coming when you decided to get serious with your ex's best friend. How did you think this was going to go any other way? Also, why are you entitled to have your sisters, but he's not entitled to have his best friend? Definitely the arsehole." And Sherilyn Fen Fatal says, "You're the arsehole. I think your ex is a saint for being cool enough to even want to stand in your wedding. Your sitch violates bro code and ex code, and it's ironic that it's you who have the problem with the ex being in the wedding. Your ex has every reason to be bitter himself, but has gotten over it. I mean, from his standpoint, he had a girlfriend who didn't care enough about the relationship to follow it, then blocked him, then shackled up with his best friend. It makes no sense that you would care this much unless you only hooked up with a fiancé to piss off the ex and he didn't take the bait. In addition, if I were your fiancé, I'd be second guessing marrying you. You clearly aren't over the ex if you can't bear the thought of seeing him while you're marrying someone else. You should be well past caring about it at this point if you truly love the fiancé. You are starting a new chapter of your life with him, not the ex. The fact that you still hold a grudge after moving on would definitely give me pause." Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Let me know in the comments below. Now, once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you've been enjoying the stories recently, and if you have, let me know in the comments below, and let me know what kind of stories you'd like to see more of, because I'm always happy to help, and I love finding certain types of stories. I got into really cult type stories once, and I really loved it. But let me know what your thoughts on that are in the comments below, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.
Boxes are defeating, purpose always fleeting. I pose questions to the ceiling like an answer gonna come. Truth is too revealing, life is easier concealing. All emotions to the start on your heart going dumb. I shouldn't be in drive more, I just wanna feel alive more. I feel hurt all the time, boy, I can't see straight. I've been